OpenAI engineer and whistleblower Suchir Balaji was found dead in November after his parents reported him missing. And after 40 minutes of surveying the scene, the San Francisco Medical Examiner's Office ruled his death to be a suicide. But there's a lot of mysterious details in this whole situation that hint at foul play.
Suchir was one of the core engineers developing the groundbreaking AI ChatGPT. In fact, OpenAI's co-founder said GPT wouldn't have succeeded without him.
Yeah, he was organizing and contributing all of these huge data sets that were used to train GPT-4, which is, of course, the language behind ChatGPT. So he had all of this insider knowledge on how the product and the company worked.
But he'd grown disenchanted with the technology he helped create, left his job, and concluded that OpenAI was so grossly violating copyright laws that not only was it illegal, it was also unsustainable for the internet itself. Just weeks before his death, he spoke out against the company.
In October, the New York Times published an interview with Suchir that sent shockwaves through the tech world. He said, "If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company."
Now, OpenAI says their use of copyrighted materials falls under fair use, claiming their AI is trained on publicly available data and substantially transforms the copyrighted material.
Suchir didn't believe that OpenAI followed any of the criteria. So he explained that when GPT-4 learns, it creates a copy of all of the data that it learns from. So when ChatGPT produces its own findings or images or whatever, it's impossible for that material to not be copyrighted.
Publishers have filed lawsuits against the company, claiming it's illegally using news articles and books to train its software. And Suchir said he'd try to testify in these cases and considered the New York Times lawsuit to be the most serious.
Times lawyers even named him in a November 18th court filing as someone who might have unique and relevant documents supporting allegations of OpenAI's willful copyright infringement.
And then 8 days later, his body is found and his death is ruled a suicide. But his parents say he was murdered in cold blood to shut him up. They say the funeral home they took Suchir's body to suggested they get a second autopsy because his death seemed suspicious.
And in that second autopsy, they found an injury on the left side of Suchir's head that indicated that he was maybe assaulted before he died.
It also showed that the bullet was shot from above. It entered just above his nose and lodged just at the back of his skull. And the private medical examiner says this angle would be nearly impossible for Suchir to inflict on himself.
Suchir's parents were skeptical of the police report, so they actually got their own crime scene report done that showed suspicious findings at the scene. Suchir's apartment was ransacked, and his parents said it was like someone was searching for something. Blood was splattered kind of far from his body, which was weird. And this was kind of crazy to us. In the blood stains, they found 2 tufts of synthetic hair, like what's found in a wig.
The second report also found that some of the drops of blood appear to have fallen when the victim was sitting or possibly crawling, and then others while the victim was standing. And some of the blood may have even been coughed up, and they concluded Suchir likely bled for 15 to 30 minutes.
The investigation also noted the disturbed surroundings, which the parents say was stolen to hide incriminating material.
Well, keep in mind, if these legal cases don't lose trillions management, well, his parents think that indicates that Suchir had more to reveal that they might have wanted to stop.
But then, of course, there are pieces of evidence in this very murky situation that point to the fact that it was a suicide. Suchir actually owned the gun that shot him. So he bought it 10 months before his death, and it was found near his body.
The toxicology report also found dangerously high levels of alcohol and drugs in his system, including amphetamines. Now, his parents insist that he was given those drugs, like roofied or something. Also, the official medical examiner ruled there were no signs of foul play.
But Suchir's parents have rebuttals to all of these points. Their big theory is that the police department to hush up what they say is the real reason that their son was undoubtedly murdered.
Yeah, Sam Altman is really close to the San Francisco city government, so they think he has them in his pocket. For example, the second crime scene report said the police reported inaccurate information when they concluded no one else could have entered his apartment, even though the police
investigators and forensic experts to prove that he was murdered. So we're actually about to speak with Purnima Ramarao and Balaji Ramamurthy about their investigation into their son's death. So the police took 40 minutes to rule Suchir's death as a suicide, but you both insist that there's evidence of foul play and even asked for an FBI investigation into his death. So what makes you think that there's more to the story?
The very first inconsistency is the spatter of blood. There is no spout of blood on the end of his gun. So if he did that kind of contact shot, there should be blood on it. That's very strange. And also the spent casing, the spent cartridge was intact in the barrel. That doesn't happen to G17 normally.
They decided within 40 Minutes means it is not a standard way of doing
Right.
a report.
It should be only death from gunshot at this point. And also the third point I wanted to very high level of alcohol. Suchir was only a social drinker. He was not heavy drinker, so he could not withstand that.
Why we know him for 26 years. They know him only after his death. So their information data is very limited. So we know more of him, what his behavior and what his last day also I spoke to him. There is no indication of depression or any suicidal thoughts there.
Yeah, tell us more. That was another question we had. What was his disposition like when in your last call with him?
He was happy. He was very happy.
It was his birthday week, and he came from Catalina Island with friends. He celebrated. Whole week he was there. So he came that Friday. We were talking around 15 minutes. And I wished him for his birthday and sent him a gift also. There was fresh supply of groceries in his apartment. He picked up dinner at 7:30. And someone who is suicidal, the first sign is they isolate themselves, right? He was outdoor. He was constantly meeting friends. There are 10 friends who say he cannot do this. The apartment, he always keeps it neat and tidy, not like what we saw in the last time. So it was ransacked, actually.
Yeah, all of that makes sense that you guys wanted to kind of push for your own investigation. So we understand that you got your own forensic report done and autopsy, a second autopsy. So through that, what did you find that's different from the original police report?
We've already seen the autopsy pictures. There are wounds inside the mouth that cannot be accounted for, and his cheekbone is broken. His face is disfigured on the right side. OCME did not mention anything about it, and his tongue is actually, there are burn marks on his tongue. We showed this angle to many doctors and radiologists. Everybody says it's very unlikely that he can shoot himself in that angle. We are consulting toxicologists, chief toxicologist from another state, and 2 radiologists from USA. We've also complained to National Association of Medical Examiners, telling them that this is malpractice in their organization. If they don't listen, we'll go higher up.
And the toxicology report was ready in December. Even though the reports were ready, they are not releasing it. That also makes suspicious.
And we understand he bought the gun.
He didn't know he bought a gun. They all knew. He bought it for self-defense. It means something has happened at work that he was afraid of. That's our logic. But OpenAI, they're lying to us. They're not releasing his files.
So flat out, what is your statement on what you think happened to your son and why? We understand that you think that there's some kind of collusion going on and that OpenAI is involved.
All we can say is 1 month after his whistleblower interview, he was found dead. And the impact of this whistleblower interview is huge. He also wrote a research paper about how to prove the copyright violation. He's very brave. He's going to leak out much more ugly side of OpenAI.
And he was supposed to give in Berkeley MBA program on lecture about ethics. So they invited him also. So he has a lot of talk shows planned for him. They didn't know he passed away. When I picked up his phone, I answered this press people, he's no more. Then they shocked because they already planned the interviews with him.
That's not the only thing. Suchir was invited for AI Summit, and he had job offer for 850,000 to 1.5 million.
And speaking of OpenAI, have you guys had any contact with OpenAI? Have you been offered hush money to stop this lawsuit?
They don't even take any responsibility. They say, oh, all sweet words. I think I should show that email. Oh, such young age and all emotional emails. And we'll support the family, they say. Twice, Sam Altman wanted to talk to us. Why? Every time he offered, we reject.
We understand that you filed a lawsuit. Can you tell us about the lawsuit, who it's against, what you're doing?
A lawsuit was against the city of San Francisco to release the report.
Do you think there's any communication between OpenAI and the government, the city government at all?
Oh, yeah, there is loads. Sam Altman was mayor transition committee in San Francisco.
Oh.
His current mayor is a good friend of him.
Ren and I have been talking about how difficult it must be for you both kind of to discuss, the details of his death and dealing with all of these legal aspects. We keep pushing.
Never. Never. No matter how difficult it is, we will do whatever is needed. We want justice for our son. We are never going to accept
Yeah,
anything.
every day we are thinking what evidence we
What
can
evidence?
collect.
Every
So,
day.
day and night we are, even in dreams.
Of course.
What would justice look like for Suchir?
Action against whoever did this. Whoever hatched it, they all need to come to court, and court has to decide what's the punishment. Whoever executed him followed the plan.
You guys are so strong. Thank you so much for walking us through that.